In many hotels, room number 13 doesn't exist, but when you find one that does, you shouldn't go in. Imagine opening the door and feeling the air colder than the hallway, hearing whispers where there should be silence and seeing shadows that move even without light. This is the story of a traveler who made the mistake of staying in the room that no one else chooses, and discovered that not everything that exists is human. As I stepped into the dimly lit lobby of the hotel, a chill crept down my spine. The air was heavy with an almost palpable tension, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to unfold. The ornate chandelier overhead flickered sporadically, casting dancing shadows across the polished wooden floor. I could already sense that this was no ordinary hotel. "Welcome," said a voice that cut through the silence like a knife. I turned to see the receptionist, a woman with strikingly pale skin and dark, cascading hair. Her eyes were an unsettling shade of gray, piercing through me as if she could see the very essence of my soul. "I've been expecting you, Ethan." I hesitated, taken aback by her familiarity. You know my name?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. You're here for room 13, aren't you?" "Yeah, I guess," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Is there a problem with that?" "Not a problem, but a warning," she said, her voice low and serious. "There are things in that room, things that don't belong in this world." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "The shadows," she said, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid they might overhear. "They come alive in that room. Be careful, Ethan. Not everyone who goes in comes out the same." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What happened to them? Many have come and gone, but their stories remain trapped. Some say the room feeds on their fears. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You may find more than you bargained for." "Right," I said, forcing a laugh to mask my discomfort. "I'll keep that in mind." She handed me a brass key, its surface cool and weighty in my palm. "Room 13 is up the stairs, at the end of the hall. Just remember what I said." With that, she returned to her duties, leaving me standing there, clutching the key as if it were a lifeline. I took a deep breath, steeling myself before heading towards the staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last, the old wooden boards creaking under my weight. As I made my way down the narrow corridor, shadows seemed to stretch and twist along the walls, clawing at the edges of my vision. I could hear the faint sound of whispers, like a distant echo of conversations long forgotten. It sent a shiver down my spine, but I pressed on, determined to face whatever awaited me in that room. Finally, I reached the door marked with a simple brass plate that read 13. My hand trembled as I inserted the key into the lock, a sense of dread washing over me. With a click, the door swung open, revealing a room that seemed frozen in time. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, illuminated by the soft light filtering through the heavy curtains. The furnishings were antiquated, a mix of faded elegance and neglect. A large, ornate mirror hung on the wall opposite the bed, its surface clouded and tarnished. I stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind me, sealing me in. As I moved further into the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and a sense of unease settled in my chest. I approached the mirror, drawn in by its dark allure. As I peered into it, I caught a glimpse of something, a shadow darting just beyond my reflection. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving only the distorted image of myself staring back. The room seemed to grow colder, the oppressive atmosphere closing in around me. "Get a grip, Ethan," I muttered under my breath, shaking my head. "It's just a stupid mirror." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. There was an energy in this room, a weight that pressed on my shoulders, urging me to remember something I had long buried. Just then, a sudden noise broke the silence, a soft whisper that echoed through the room. "Ethan." It was faint, a voice I didn't recognize, but it sent a jolt of fear coursing through me. I turned sharply, scanning the room for the source, but found nothing. "Hello," I called out, my voice shaky. "Is anyone there?" Silence answered me. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a tempest, echoing my name in a haunting refrain. It felt as if the very walls were alive, closing in, suffocating me with their secrets. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and I spun around to see a girl standing there, her wide eyes reflecting the same fear I felt. "You heard it too, didn't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" "I'm Clara," she said, stepping into the room, her gaze darting to the mirror. "I'm staying on this floor." I thought I was the only one. I gestured towards the mirror, a knot tightening in my stomach. "I saw something in there. A shadow." Clara nodded, her expression somber. "I felt it too. I've been drawn to this hotel since I arrived. It's like it knows me, like it wants something from me." "What do you mean?" I asked, curiosity mingling with apprehension. "I've always felt a connection to the supernatural," she admitted, her voice low. "It's as if I can sense things that others can't. And in this room, I feel like I'm being pulled into something darker." Just as I was about to respond, a loud thud echoed outside the room, making both of us jump. We exchanged frightened glances, and without thinking, we hurried towards the door to investigate. As we stepped into the hallway, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like a sinister breeze. I could see shadows flitting at the edges of my vision, darting away whenever I turned my head. "Do you think it's just the wind?" I asked, trying to mask the fear in my voice. "No," Clara said, shaking her head emphatically. "This place is alive. It's calling us." Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, and I felt a rush of relief. "Tom!" I exclaimed, recognizing the newcomer. He was another guest I had met in the lobby earlier, his demeanor calm and reassuring. "Hey, I was looking for you too," he said, glancing between Clara and me. "Did you hear that noise? It sounded like it came from the end of the hall." "Yeah," I replied, heart still racing. "We were just about to check it out." "Let's stick together," Tom suggested, his voice steady. "I've heard some unsettling stories about this hotel, especially about room 13. There's something about it that keeps drawing people in." As we moved cautiously down the corridor, I couldn't help but feel that we were walking deeper into a trap. The whispers grew louder, almost pleading, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching us from the shadows. "What do you think it wants?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Tom replied, "but I have a feeling it's not just a coincidence that the three of us are here. We need to figure out what's going on before it's too late." As we reached the end of the hallway, I could feel the oppressive atmosphere closing in around us. The shadows danced along the walls, flickering like candle flames, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being lured into a trap from which there would be no escape. "Stay close," I urged, my heart pounding louder than the whispers. We were on the brink of uncovering something far more sinister than any of us had anticipated. As the unsettling atmosphere of the hotel pressed in on me, I found myself standing before Clara, who shared my sense of dread. We were both shaken, having witnessed something inexplicable in that cursed room. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the quaint decor of the hotel seem more sinister. I could still hear the whispers echoing in my mind, a constant reminder that we were not alone in this place. "Did you see it too?" I asked Clara, my voice barely above a whisper. The fear in my chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. Clara nodded, her eyes wide. "It was there in the mirror. A shadow that wasn't mine," she replied, her voice trembling. "I felt it watching me, like it was waiting for something." I glanced around, half expecting to see that dark figure lurking in the corners. "What do you think it wants?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "I don't know," Clara admitted, biting her lip, "but I've always felt a connection to the supernatural. It's like I can sense things others can't. And this place, it fascinates me, even if it terrifies me." "Fascinating and terrifying," I echoed, feeling a chill run down my spine. "That sounds like a dangerous combination." Before she could respond, Tom appeared at the end of the corridor, his face pale and drawn. "You both look like you've seen a ghost," he said, trying to lighten the mood, but his eyes betrayed his own fear. "Maybe we have," Clara shot back, her voice edged with sarcasm. "Did you hear those sounds?" Tom nodded gravely. "Yeah, I did. I thought I was losing my mind." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You two need to know something. There's a history with this hotel, especially with room 13. People have disappeared." "Disappeared?" I repeated, a lump forming in my throat. "What do you mean?" Tom looked around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. "I've spent some time digging into this place. The stories are unsettling. Guests who stayed in that room never checked out. It's like they just vanished into thin air." "Why would anyone want to stay in a room like that?" Clara asked incredulously. "Some people are drawn to it," Tom replied, a frown creasing his forehead. "They think it's just a room, but it's more than that. It's a trap." "A trap?" I echoed, my heart racing. "What kind of trap?" Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I found an old diary in the library. It talks about a shadow creature that feeds on fear and secrets. It's like the hotel itself is alive, and it's hungry." "A shadow creature?" Clara raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping into her voice. "That sounds like something out of a horror movie." "I thought the same," Tom admitted. "But then I saw the entries. People wrote about feeling watched, about hearing whispers that drove them mad. And then they just disappeared." A shiver coursed through me, and I exchanged a glance with Clara. "What do we do?" I asked, feeling a sense of urgency. "We need to find that diary," Tom said decisively. "It might give us answers, or at least a way to protect ourselves." "Let's do it," Clara said, determination flickering in her eyes. "If we're going to confront whatever is in that room, we need to know what we're dealing with." With a shared nod, we made our way to the hotel library. The dimly lit room smelled of old books and dust, the shelves filled with forgotten stories and secrets. I felt a sense of foreboding as I stepped inside, the weight of history pressing down on us. "Where do you think it would be?" I asked, scanning the shelves lined with books of varying sizes and ages. Tom walked over to a section labeled Local History and began pulling books down, flipping through pages. "It has to be here somewhere. I remember reading about it in a book about the hotel's past." Clara moved to another shelf, running her fingers along the spines of the books. "What was the name of the diary?" she asked. "I don't remember," Tom muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. "But it should mention the creature." "Maybe it's not a diary at all," I suggested, trying to think logically. "What if it's just a journal or a collection of stories?" "Good point," Clara said, nodding. "Let's keep looking." As we sifted through the books, I felt a strange sensation, as if unseen eyes were watching us. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to nerves. Clara suddenly stopped, her eyes wide. "Here!" she exclaimed, pulling a worn leather-bound book from the shelf. "I think I found it." Tom rushed over, taking the book from her hands. "This is it. This has to be it," he said, flipping it open carefully. The pages were yellowed and frayed, filled with handwritten notes and sketches. The ink faded but still legible. "Read it," I urged, leaning closer to see the words. "What does it say?" Tom scanned the pages, his brow furrowing. "It talks about a guest who stayed in room 13 over a century ago. He wrote about hearing whispers at night, about shadows creeping into his dreams." And then he paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "He disappeared." "Disappeared?" Clara echoed, her voice shaky. "What happened to him?" "The last entry says something about a shadow that fed on his fears," Tom continued. "It's like it was luring him, feeding off his anxiety and regret." I felt my pulse quicken. What if it's still doing that? What if it's feeding off us right now? "Exactly," Tom said, looking grim. "This creature thrives on unresolved pain and guilt. It finds ways to expose your darkest secrets." Clara shivered. "I can't believe we're doing this. We're putting ourselves in danger." Tom closed the book, determination flashing in his eyes. "We need to confront it. We can't just ignore what's happening. We owe it to the people who vanished. I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. Okay, let's do it. We need to go back to room 13 and face whatever is lurking there. The three of us shared a moment of silence, the gravity of our choice hanging in the air. I could feel the dread creeping back in, but beneath that fear was a flicker of resolve. We had to uncover the truth, not just for ourselves, but for the souls trapped in that room. As we stepped out of the library, I glanced back at the shelves, feeling the weight of the stories contained within. We were about to enter a battle against something far more powerful than we understood. Would we emerge unscathed, or would we become the next chapter in this hotel's dark history? Only time would tell. As I sat on the edge of the bed in room 13, the air thickened around me, and the shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The antique mirror across the room caught my eye once more, its surface glimmering with a dark allure that I couldn't quite resist. I rose to my feet, drawn to it, an inexplicable force urging me closer. Clara and Tom were still poring over the old journal, engrossed in its pages, but I felt as if I were being pulled into a different realm. As I stood before the mirror, my reflection stared back at me, but something was off. The image was distorted, the edges of my figure blurred and wavering like a flame caught in the wind. I leaned in closer, my heart racing, when suddenly the reflection shifted. A face emerged in the glass, my wife's face. Her features were softened by the veil of time, yet unmistakably hers. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody, echoing in my mind. "Why did you leave me?" I staggered back, my breath hitching in my throat. "No, this can't be real," I murmured, trying to shake off the vision. It was impossible. She had died in that car accident, a moment of sheer horror that replayed in my mind like a broken record. I could still hear the crunching metal, see the shattered glass, feel the weight of the guilt that had settled over me ever since. "Hey, are you okay?" Clara's voice broke through my reverie. I turned to see her concern etched across her face, but I couldn't gather my thoughts long enough to respond. I saw her," I stammered. "In the mirror. It was Sarah." Tom looked up from the journal, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean? You saw her? Like, actually saw her?" "Yes," I replied, my voice trembling. She was right there. She was calling to me." Clara stepped closer, her eyes wide with empathy. "Ethan, that must have been terrifying. But you have to remember, this place is messing with our heads. The energy here is unlike anything I've ever felt." I shook my head, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "You don't understand. It's not just the hotel. It's my fault she's gone. I should have been driving that night. I should have—" "Ethan," Tom interjected, his tone firm yet calming. "You can't keep blaming yourself for something that was out of your control. We all have our burdens to carry. But this isn't going to help you heal." I wanted to argue, to deny what he said, but deep down, I knew he was right. The guilt wrapped around my heart like a vice, squeezing tighter with every passing moment. I turned back to the mirror, hoping to catch another glimpse of her, to find some semblance of closure. But the reflection was just me, lost and alone. "Let's focus on what we can do," Clara said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "This hotel is linked to something bigger. We need to figure out what that is and how it ties to your past." "I don't know if I can," I admitted, the weight of my own history pressing down on me. "What if I can't face it? What if I can't let go?" Tom stepped closer, his expression earnest. "You have to. You can't let the shadows win. If there's a chance that confronting your past can free you and those trapped here, then we have to take that step." I nodded slowly, the fight in me waning. I had been running from my demons for far too long. Maybe it was time to face them, to confront the memories that haunted me. But as I turned back to the mirror, the shadows around me seemed to swell and reach out, wrapping around my mind like tendrils of darkness. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my chest, and I was thrown into a whirlwind of images. I was back in that car, the smell of burnt rubber and gasoline filling my nostrils. I could hear the screeching of tires, the deafening sound of impact, and then silence. I turned to my side, seeing Sarah, her eyes wide with fear, her voice a distant echo. "Ethan, please." I reached out to her, but the glass of the mirror turned cold beneath my palms, and I was pulled away from her, back into the present. I gasped for air, my heart racing as I stumbled back from the mirror, overwhelmed by the rush of emotions flooding through me. "Ethan, what's happening?" Clara shouted, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. I could see the concern etched on her face, but all I could feel was the weight of my past crashing down on me. I saw it again, I gasped, struggling to regain my composure. The accident. I was there. I couldn't save her. Tom clenched his fists, his expression fierce. "You need to fight this. Don't let it take hold of you." "I can't," I shouted, frustration spilling over. "I can't just forget what happened. It's my fault she's gone." "Ethan, listen to me," Clara said urgently, her voice cutting through the fog of despair. "You can't keep punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You need to let go. You need to confront this, not hide from it." I felt their eyes on me, searching for some sign of hope within the shadows that clung to me. But how could I face the memories that tormented me? How could I accept that I was alive while she was gone? Maybe I can't," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "Then we'll do it together," Tom insisted. "You're not alone in this. We're here for you, Ethan. We'll help you confront whatever it is that's holding you back." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. The thought of facing my past filled me with dread, but perhaps I didn't have to do it alone. I looked at Clara and Tom, their determination shining through the darkness. "Okay," I finally said, my voice steadier. "I'll try." As I turned back toward the mirror, I could feel the shadows swirling around me, thick and suffocating. But this time, I didn't let them intimidate me. I squared my shoulders and stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The reflection shimmered, and for a brief moment, I saw Sarah's face again, a fleeting glimpse through the haze. "Why didn't you save me?" she asked, her voice laced with sorrow. "I tried," I cried out, the pain spilling over. "I tried to be there for you, but I failed." The shadows around me shifted, and I felt their weight pressing down harder. "You didn't fail, Ethan," Clara said, her voice a steady anchor. "You did everything you could. You need to tell her that." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat almost choking me. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." As the words left my lips, the mirror darkened, and I felt a surge of energy coursing through me. I could see her face clearer now, the pain in her eyes softening. "You can let go, Ethan. You can move on." Tears streamed down my cheeks as I fought against the tide of guilt. "But how? I can't just forget you." "You don't have to forget me," she replied softly. "Just remember the love we shared. Let that be what guides you, not the pain." The shadows began to recede, the darkness lifting as I spoke the truth. "I loved you, Sarah. I still love you. You were everything to me." And in that moment, a warmth enveloped me, filling the cold void that had taken residence in my heart. The mirror shimmered, and I could see the light breaking through the shadows, illuminating everything around me. "Now, you must find a way to forgive yourself," Sarah's voice echoed, gentle yet strong. "Only then can you truly be free." With every word, I felt the weight of my past begin to lift. The shadows that had once threatened to consume me were fading, and I could finally see the path ahead. "I will," I vowed, my voice steady. "I will forgive myself." As I took a step back from the mirror, I felt the presence of Clara and Tom beside me, their support a lifeline in the storm. Together, we faced the darkness, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, united in our quest for the truth and healing. I stood there, a chill running down my spine, as Tom recounted his previous investigations into the hotel. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, and the flickering light in the room seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "Ethan," Tom said, his voice low but urgent, "the people who entered room number 13, they didn't just vanish. They were consumed. Something in there is drawing us in, and we need to act before it's too late." Clara, sitting cross-legged on the floor, looked up at me with wide, worried eyes. What do you mean, consumed? Like, they disappeared? Her voice trembled slightly, but there was a determination behind her gaze that encouraged me to keep my composure. Tom nodded, glancing between us. Yes, they went in, and no one ever saw them again. It's like the room absorbs them, feeds off their fears and secrets. We can't let that happen to us. I glanced toward the mirror, its surface slightly warped, reflecting not just our images, but something deeper, something darker. What can we do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The idea of facing whatever dwelled in that room sent a wave of dread through me. Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself. I've read about methods to communicate with spirits. What if we try a seance? Maybe we can reach out to the souls trapped here and find a way to help them. A seance? I echoed, skepticism bubbling up within me. Isn't that dangerous? What if we invite something worse in? Or what if we find answers? Clara countered, her eyes brightening with the possibility. We need to know what we're dealing with. We can't just sit here and wait to be consumed. Tom nodded in agreement. If we're going to do this, we need to prepare. We need to understand what kind of energy we're dealing with. The hotel has a history, and we can't ignore that. I rubbed my temples, overwhelmed. And what if it doesn't work? What if it just makes things worse? Then we'll deal with it, Clara said, her voice firm. But we can't let fear control us. Not anymore. After a moment of silence, I felt the weight of their gazes on me, waiting for my decision. I inhaled deeply, steeling my nerves. All right, let's do it. But we need to be careful. As night fell, we gathered the few candles we could find in the hotel, flickering flames casting eerie shadows across the room. Clara arranged them in a circle on the floor, the wax pooling at the bases as she focused intently. Tom paced back and forth, glancing at the door every time he heard a creak in the old building. Do you really think this will work? He asked, breaking the tension. Clara nodded, her expression serious. It has to. We need to connect with whatever is in that room. We need to find out why it's keeping people trapped. I clenched my fists, fighting the rising anxiety within me. What do we do first? Clara took a seat in the center of the circle, gesturing for us to join her. We need to open the session. Close your eyes, clear your mind, and focus on the intention of reaching out to the spirits trapped in this hotel. Tom and I exchanged hesitant glances, but we joined her, sitting cross-legged on the cold floor. As we closed our eyes, I felt a strange energy in the air, a buzzing sensation that prickled at my skin. Clara's voice broke through the silence. Spirits of this place, we invite you to join us. We seek to understand your pain and to offer our help. Please reveal yourselves. As she spoke, I felt the air grow heavy, thick with tension. My heart raced, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch and dance, swirling in patterns that made me uneasy. Ethan, focus, Clara urged softly. Remember what we're here for. We need to connect with them. I nodded, trying to center myself. But just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, and the candles flickered violently. My eyes flew open, heart pounding. What was that? I exclaimed, my voice rising in panic. Stay calm, Tom said, his voice steady but firm. We can't let fear disrupt the session. Maybe we should stop, I suggested, glancing nervously at the door. This doesn't feel right. No, Clara insisted. We're close. I can feel it. Just give it a moment. Before I could protest further, the candles flickered once more, and the shadows around us deepened. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing the flames in an instant. The darkness enveloped us, leaving only the faintest glimmer of light seeping through the cracks of the door. Clara? I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. What's happening? Shoo, she replied, her voice barely audible above the rising tension. Listen. The air around us felt charged, and then, out of the silence, a faint whisper reached my ears, a chorus of hushed voices intertwining, echoing with sorrow. I strained to make out the words, but they were too faint, too distant. Can you hear them? Clara asked, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. They're trying to communicate. I nodded slowly, heart racing. But what are they saying? Before Clara could respond, a loud bang resonated through the room, causing the walls to shudder. I jumped to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This is too much. We need to stop. But Clara reached out, grabbing my wrist. No, we can't quit now. We're on the verge of something important. Important? I shot back, panic rising in my voice. This is insane. We're inviting danger. Ethan, please, Tom said, his voice steady but urgent. We need to keep going. We're so close. In that moment, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable sense of something, an energy that was both inviting and menacing. Then, as if responding to my fear, a shape began to materialize in the darkness, flickering like a dying flame. Ethan. I heard a voice call softly, and my heart stopped. It was a voice I recognized all too well. Is that? I whispered, my breath hitching in my throat. Ethan. It called again, clearer this time, more insistent. My heart raced as I stepped closer. Ethan, I need you. I froze, caught between disbelief and longing. No, I breathed. It can't be. The figure took shape, a silhouette of a woman surrounded by shadows, her eyes reflecting a deep sadness. You have to help me, Ethan. Stop, Clara shouted, shaking me from my trance. Don't get too close. It's a trick. But I couldn't pull away. The figure was so familiar, so achingly real. Sarah? I whispered, my voice cracking. Is that really you? I need you to face it, she pleaded, her voice a haunting echo. You can't let them win. You have to let go of the guilt. Suddenly, the room trembled, and the shadows surged forward, swirling around us like a tempest. I felt the ground beneath me shift, the air thickening with a suffocating pressure. Ethan, Tom shouted, grabbing my arm and pulling me back. You can't listen to her. It's not real. But I was lost in a whirlwind of emotions. I can't just leave her. Ethan, please. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. We need to close this session. Now. With a monumental effort, I tore my gaze away from the figure, the pain of loss overwhelming me. But I let go of the past. Clara cried, her voice breaking through my turmoil. You have to confront your pain, but not like this. Not by getting lost in the shadows. I took a step back, breathless, as the figure began to dissolve into the darkness. No, don't go, I shouted, a desperation clawing at my heart. But the shadows wrapped around her, pulling her away from me. Ethan. Her voice faded into a whisper, leaving an emptiness that echoed through my soul. Ethan. Clara's voice snapped me back to reality. Focus. We need to end this. Okay, I gasped, feeling the weight of the moment. What do we do? Repeat after me, she instructed, urgency lacing her words. We release you. We release all the pain, all the guilt. As we spoke together, a force surged around us, and the shadows trembled violently. I felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Let the truth set you free, Clara shouted, and I found my voice, echoing her words. Let the truth set you free. Tom joined in, our voices rising in unison. The shadows began to writhe, twisting and contorting, fighting against the light we were generating. You don't belong here, Clara cried, determination filling her voice. You must leave. And in that moment, I felt a connection with Clara and Tom, a bond forged in the face of darkness. Together, we shouted, we release you. I sat on the edge of the bed in room 13, a strange tension filling the air like static electricity. Clara and Tom, both looking equally shaken, had just finished discussing the session we attempted earlier. My mind was a swirling storm of confusion and fear. The shadow I had seen in the mirror, a reflection that didn't belong to me, haunted me more than I wanted to admit. It felt as though I had crossed a threshold, stepping into a world far more sinister than I had anticipated. I can't believe what just happened, Clara said, her voice a trembling whisper. She hugged her knees to her chest, her dark curls falling over her face. That shadow, it felt so real, like it was reaching for us. Tom leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Real or not, we have to figure this out. People are disappearing, and it's linked to this room. We can't just sit here and wait for something to happen. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. What if we're next? What if we can't escape this place? The words tumbled out, revealing the fear I'd kept bottled inside. I was terrified of what this hotel represented, of the shadows that lurked not just in the corners of the room but within me. Ethan, Clara said softly, her eyes meeting mine. We need to talk about what you saw. The shadow, it was calling to you, wasn't it? You've been through so much. Her voice was soothing, yet it only intensified the turmoil inside me. I don't know, I replied, shaking my head. It looked like my wife, but it couldn't be her. It's just a trick, right? A manifestation of my guilt. The memories washed over me, vivid and raw. The accident, the screams, the crushing weight of loss. Tom shifted uncomfortably. That's exactly what it is. This place feeds on those feelings. It knows our fears, our secrets. That's why we have to confront it. We can't let it take us. Confront it? I echoed, disbelief lacing my tone. Tom, how do we even begin to confront something we don't understand? What if we make it worse? We won't know until we try, he insisted. We have to find out what happened to those who disappeared. There has to be a reason they were taken. Clara's eyes sparkled with determination. If we can understand the history of this place, maybe we can find a way to protect ourselves. I mean, that diary we found mentioned the being that feeds off secrets and fears. Maybe it has something to do with the people who vanished. Fine, I said, resignation settling in. Let's find out more about this hotel. But I'm warning you both. I won't be responsible for what happens if we dig too deep. As the three of us prepared to investigate further, a heavy silence enveloped the room, each of us lost in our thoughts. The atmosphere felt thick, as if the very walls of room 13 were listening, waiting. We gathered around the small table, where the diary lay open, its pages yellowed and brittle. Tom flipped through it, his brow furrowed in concentration. Here, look at this, he said, pointing to a passage. It talks about a previous guest, a woman named Margaret. She was here for a week before she disappeared, just like the others. What does it say about her? Clara leaned in, her curiosity piqued. Tom read aloud, his voice steady despite the underlying tension. Margaret claimed to have seen visions in the mirror, shadows that whispered her name. She wrote that they knew her secret, something she had buried deep within. And after that, she vanished without a trace. Great, I muttered, rubbing my temples. Just what we need. More evidence that this place preys on our pain. Clara's expression turned serious. But what if we're not just victims? What if we have the power to break this cycle? We need to dig deeper into our own truths, confront what's haunting us. What are you suggesting? I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. I'm saying we should do a seance to communicate with whatever spirits are trapped here. Maybe they can help us understand what happened to Margaret and the others, she replied, her voice gaining strength. I hesitated, the idea sending chills down my spine. A seance? Are you serious? What if we invite something malevolent? Or what if we find the answers we're looking for? Tom countered. It's a risk we have to take. We need to know what we're dealing with. After a long pause, I nodded, albeit reluctantly. All right, let's do it. But I'm not going to be the one leading it. I trust you both to keep this safe. That night, we gathered our chairs in a circle, the dim light flickering as the candles we had found in the room cast eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced, each beat echoing the fear that gripped me. Clara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, while Tom held my hand tightly, his grip a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Let's focus, Clara said, her voice calm yet firm. We're here to connect with any spirits that wish to communicate. We mean no harm, and we seek only the truth. As the words left her lips, I felt the air shift, a cold breeze swirling around us. The candles flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. My heart hammered in my chest. This was a bad idea, I whispered. Shh, Tom urged, eyes glued to the center of our circle. Just focus. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew heavy, and a deep silence enveloped us. The candles flickered once more, and I caught sight of a shadow creeping along the edge of the room. My breath hitched, panic rising within me. Do you see that? I gasped, my voice barely audible. Clara's eyes shot open, filled with fear. Stay calm. It's just a shadow. We need to keep our focus. But I couldn't help it. My gaze was drawn to the dark figure that seemed to pulse with life, a swirling mass of darkness that felt alive and hungry. I could feel it reaching for me, pulling at the edges of my sanity. I can't do this, I stammered, my voice trembling. Ethan, focus, Tom urged, his grip tightening. We're in this together. Remember what's at stake. As if responding to our fear, the shadows around us began to dance, swirling and twisting into grotesque figures. I heard whispers, indistinct but haunting, echoing in my ears. Ethan, a voice called, soft yet chilling. Ethan, what's wrong? Clara's voice broke through my fog of terror. I saw her, I whispered, my heart racing. I saw my wife. What do you mean? Tom asked, concern etched on his face. She was right there. In the shadows, I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me like she was calling for me. Focus, Ethan. Don't let it take you, Clara urged, her voice shaking. The shadows surged around me, and I felt the air grow colder. I can't, I cried out, panic clawing at my throat. I can't face this. A deafening crash echoed through the room, causing us to jump. Objects flew off the table, and the candles sputtered violently, casting erratic light across the walls. The shadows morphed into figures of despair, each one representing a piece of my past. My guilt, my sorrow, my regrets. Ethan, Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Remember why we're here. I can't, I began, but the shadows pulled at me, dragging me toward the mirror. I felt a force pushing me forward, and the reflection that met my gaze was not my own. It was a distorted image of my wife, her face twisted in anguish. Come to me, the shadow of her voice beckoned. You can't escape this pain. No, I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. The room spun around me, and I stumbled, feeling as if I were being drawn into the very depths of despair. Ethan, hold on, Tom shouted, trying to pull me back, but the shadows tugged at me relentlessly. Let go of him, Clara cried, her voice breaking through the haze. You're stronger than this. With a sudden surge of energy, I broke free from the shadow's grip, falling back into the circle. I gasped for air, my heart racing. The shadows began to retreat, but the darkness still loomed, waiting for another opportunity to strike. We need to end this, Tom said, his voice steady. We can't let it take any of us. We need to confront our fears, our truths. I don't know if I can, I admitted, fear creeping back into my voice. You can, Clara said, her gaze unwavering. We all can. We need to face what we've lost, Ethan. Only then can we truly understand. The shadows lingered at the edges of the room, still watching, still waiting. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. All right, I'll try. As we gathered our strength, I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me, but alongside it was a flicker of hope. Together we could confront the darkness. Together we could find answers. I stood in the dimly lit room, the oppressive atmosphere of room 13 wrapping around me like a thick fog. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I stared into the mirror, knowing that something malevolent lurked just beyond the surface. Clara and Tom's voices faded into the background. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Ethan, are you okay? Clara's voice broke through my reverie. She stepped closer, her brow furrowed with concern. You look like you've seen a ghost. It's just this place, I murmured, my eyes glued to the mirror. It feels heavy, like it's alive, Suddenly, the shadows in the room shifted, and I felt a cold breeze wash over me. I shivered, and my mind began to spiral. The reflection in the mirror flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw a familiar face. My breath caught in my throat as the image sharpened, and I was transported back to the day of the accident, the day my life had shattered into a million pieces. "Ethan," Tom's voice was urgent. "Stay with us. Don't get lost in there." But it was too late. The scene played out in vivid detail. A sunny afternoon, the sound of laughter, and then the screech of tires. I could feel the warmth of her hand in mine, the way she smiled at me just before everything changed. My heart ached as I relived the moment again. The fear, the helplessness, the crushing weight of guilt that had haunted me ever since. "Ethan," Clara's voice pierced through the haze. "Snap out of it." I shook my head violently, trying to clear the fog that had enveloped my mind. But the images only grew stronger, pulling me deeper into the abyss of my memories. I could hear her voice, soft and soothing, calling my name. "Ethan, come back to me." "No!" I screamed, clutching my head as if I could physically block the memories from invading my thoughts. "Stop, please." "Ethan, look at me," Tom said firmly, stepping in front of me. "You need to fight it. It's not real. It's just your past trying to drag you down." But how could I fight it? The pain was all-consuming. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering precariously over the chasm of my own despair. The shadow in the room twisted and turned, morphing into grotesque forms that mocked my suffering. "Fight back," Clara urged, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "You're stronger than this." I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the present. "You don't understand," I whispered, my voice cracking. "It's my fault. I should have been there. I should have." "Ethan, listen to me," Clara interrupted, her eyes fierce. "You can't keep blaming yourself. You're not responsible for what happened. You have to let go. Let go." The words echoed in my mind, bouncing off the walls of my guilt. How can I let go when she's gone? When I didn't save her? Because holding on is killing you. Tom's voice was urgent, filled with an intensity that broke through my fog. You have to confront it. You have to face the truth. As I looked into the mirror again, the figure morphed into something more recognizable. My wife, her face etched with sadness. "Ethan, please," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm against the storm raging inside me. "You can't keep punishing yourself. I want you to be free." "No!" I shouted, stepping back, my heart racing. "You're not real. You're just a shadow, a trick of the light." The shadow that had taken on her form stepped closer, and I felt an overwhelming wave of sorrow wash over me. "I am real, Ethan. I'm a part of you. You can't run from me. You have to face me." I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block her out, but the pain surged through me like a tidal wave. "I can't do this. I can't bear it." "Then you'll never be free," the shadow whispered, its voice echoing in my mind. "You'll be trapped here, forever haunted by the past." "Ethan," Clara cried out, but her voice felt distant, as if she were trapped in another world. "You need to stay with us." I felt the shadows closing in, wrapping around me like chains. "What do I do?" I gasped, my voice filled with desperation. "Face your truth," Tom urged, his voice steady. "You have to confront what you've been running from." I opened my eyes, staring into the depths of the mirror. The shadow loomed larger, a dark figure filled with my worst fears and regrets. I can't face it," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I don't want to feel this pain anymore." "Pain is part of healing," Clara said gently, stepping closer. "You can't heal if you don't confront it." Taking a shaky breath, I forced myself to look deeper into the mirror. "I loved you," I whispered to the shadow. "I should have saved you. I should have been there." "You loved me, Ethan," the shadow echoed, its voice a haunting reflection of my own. "But love isn't enough to change the past. You have to forgive yourself." I felt the weight of those words hanging in the air, and for the first time, A flicker of hope ignited within me. Forgive myself? I repeated, testing the words on my tongue. How do I do that? By accepting that you were human, the shadow replied, its form shifting slightly, becoming less monstrous and more familiar. You can't change what happened, but you can choose how to live with it. I glanced at Clara and Tom, their faces filled with encouragement. You can do this, Ethan, Clara said softly. We're with you. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of their support surrounding me. Okay, I said, my voice steadier. I'll try. Good, Tom nodded. Now, confront your memories. They can't hurt you if you face them. The shadow loomed closer, and I felt my heart race as I prepared to face the truth of that day. I loved her so much, I said, my voice trembling. I should have been there to protect her. I should have... Ethan, it was an accident, Clara interjected, her voice fierce. You weren't in control. You can't keep blaming yourself for something that was out of your hands. As the words sank in, I felt a shift within myself. I know it was an accident, I whispered, the tears flowing freely now. But it hurts so much. I miss her every day. I miss her too, the shadow said, its voice softer now. But holding on to the guilt will only keep us apart. You have to let go. My heart ached as I thought of her smile, the way her laughter filled the room with light. I don't want to forget her, I said, my voice breaking. I just want to remember her the way she was, then remember her with love, not guilt, the shadow replied, its form shifting again. Let me go so you can live. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I forgive myself, I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. I forgive myself for not being there. As I spoke those words, the shadows around me began to shift and swirl, and I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. Let go of the pain, Ethan, the shadow urged. Embrace the love we shared. With a final surge of courage, I stepped forward, reaching out to the shadow. I love you, I said, my voice steady, and I will always carry you in my heart. But I need to move on. In that moment, the shadow began to dissolve, its dark form fading away into the light. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, and the oppressive atmosphere of room 13 started to lighten. Ethan, Clara's voice rang out, filled with relief. You did it. I turned to her, tears still streaming down my face, but a smile broke through the sadness. I think I finally did. Tom stepped forward, clapping me on the shoulder. You faced your demons, man. That takes real strength. The shadows around us began to dissipate, and I felt a sense of peace washing over me. I'll always remember her, I said softly, looking back one last time at the mirror. But I can finally let her go. As the last remnants of darkness faded away, I knew I was free. I found myself alone in the cold, oppressive darkness of the hotel room, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. The shadows that lingered in the corners seemed to pulse with a life of their own, whispering secrets I could not decipher. The weight of my past pressed down on me, suffocating, as I took tentative steps forward, unsure of what awaited me in this labyrinth of torment. Ethan, Clara's voice echoed faintly in the distance, a lifeline in this sea of despair. But even her voice seemed distant, as if she were calling from a different realm. I turned, desperately seeking her presence, but the shadows shifted, curling around me like tendrils, isolating me further. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. Clara, Tom, my voice sounded foreign, swallowed by the darkness. I felt as though I were walking through a nightmare, the very walls closing in, trapping me in a web of my own making. The memories flooded back. The accident, the guilt, the unbearable weight of loss. As I stepped deeper into the shadows, I was transported back to that fateful day. The screech of tires on asphalt echoed in my ears, and I could almost smell the burning rubber. I was there again, standing on the side of the road, helpless as the world around me shattered. No, 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 I muttered, shaking my head as if I could will the memory away. Suddenly, I heard a rustle behind me. I turned to see Clara and Tom emerging from the shadows. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear. "Ethan," Clara gasped, rushing to my side. "We thought we lost you." I don't know, I stammered, the words tumbling out. It was like I was back there. At the accident, my breath quickened, and I could feel panic rising in my chest. "I can't keep doing this." Tom placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You need to confront it, Ethan. You have to face what happened. Running away won't help." "But it hurts," I replied, my voice cracking. "It hurts so much. I can't bear it." Clara stepped closer, her eyes softening. "We're here for you. We'll face it together. You don't have to do this alone. The shadows, they're alive," I whispered, glancing around as if the darkness itself could hear me. "They're feeding off my pain." "Then we need to turn that pain into something else," Tom said, his voice steady. "We have to find a way to break this cycle. Remember what we read in the journal. Only the truth can set you free." I nodded slowly, the weight of those words settling over me like a shroud. "But what if the truth is too much to bear?" Clara stepped forward, determination shining in her eyes. "The truth is what brought us here, Ethan. Is what we need to confront, not just for you, but for all the souls trapped in this place. We owe it to them." As if in response to her words, the shadows around us flickered, the darkness shimmering with an unsettling energy. I felt a chill run down my spine as I glanced into the depths of the void. "We need to keep moving," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't stay here." We pressed on, the atmosphere thickening as we stumbled deeper into the labyrinth. Each corner we turned revealed fragments of my past, memories that swirled like smoke in the air. I saw flashes of my life before the accident. Laughter, love, warmth, only to be swallowed by the bitter reality of that day. "I can't do this," I said, frustration boiling over. "I can't keep reliving it." "You have to," Clara urged, her voice steady. "Face it head on. You can't let it control you anymore." As if summoned by my anguish, the shadows shifted, swirling around me with a menacing energy. "Ethan," a voice whispered, echoing with sorrow. "Ethan, please." I froze, recognizing the voice. It was her, the voice of my wife, soft and pleading. My heart raced, caught between hope and despair. "Is that you?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. "Are you here? Ethan, you need to let go." The voice echoed, wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. "You have to forgive yourself." "Forgive myself?" I spat back, anger rising within me. "How can I forgive myself? I was the one driving. I was supposed to protect you." The shadows thickened, swirling faster, feeding on my turmoil. "You cannot change the past," the voice replied, more insistent now. "You must confront it. Only then will you find peace." "Peace?" I scoffed. "How can I find peace when I caused your death?" "Ethan, listen to me," Clara said, stepping closer, her gaze unwavering. "You didn't mean for it to happen. You have to understand that. Accept it. Embrace it." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "I can't. I won't." "Why not?" Tom pressed, his brow furrowing. "What are you afraid of?" "The pain," I cried out, my voice cracking under the weight of my anguish. "The pain of knowing I failed her. I can't bear it." The shadows erupted, coiling around us, their whispers intensifying, drowning out my thoughts. "Ethan." The voice called again, more insistent, more real. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out. "I'm not ready." "Then you'll never be free," Clara said softly. "You have to face it, Ethan. You can't hide from it forever." With trembling hands, I reached out, feeling the cold touch of the shadows against my skin. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, anger boiling over. "Face the truth," the voice insisted, growing stronger. "Embrace your memories. Only then can you let go." As the shadows surged around me, I felt a sudden pull, a yearning to confront my past. I was caught in a web of fear and regret, but the truth lingered just beyond my reach. "I can't keep doing this," I murmured, my heart racing. You can, Ethan, Clara said, her voice steady. You're stronger than you think. You have to remember the love, not just the pain. Focus on that. I took a deep breath, allowing her words to wash over me. The love, I repeated, the phrase echoing in my mind. The love. In that moment, the shadows began to shift, swirling around me like a tempest. I could feel their energy, the weight of my sorrow tugging at my heart. I had to confront it, had to face the truth. Ethan, Tom's voice cut through the chaos. Remember what you've lost, but also remember what you had. The love you shared with her. It was real. I opened my eyes, the darkness swirling before me. I loved her. I whispered, the truth resonating deep within. I still love her. Then let that love guide you, Clara urged, her eyes locked on mine. Face what happened. Embrace it. You can't let the shadows win. As I focused on the love we shared, the darkness began to shift, revealing glimpses of our life together. Laughter echoed in my ears, and I could almost see her face, radiant with joy. We were happy, I murmured. We were so happy, but the shadows clawed at me, pulling me back into the abyss. You failed her, they hissed, their voices slithering into my mind. No, I shouted, defiance igniting within me. I loved her. I tried my best. Then face it, Clara urged, her voice a beacon in the darkness. Face your guilt. I closed my eyes, feeling the memories wash over me. The day of the accident replayed in vivid detail. The laughter, the warmth, the love we shared. And then the crash. The moment everything changed. Ethan, please. The voice echoed, pleading, desperate. You need to let go. I felt the shadows pressing in, suffocating. I can't. I cried, tears streaming down my face. I can't let go of the guilt. Then you'll never escape, Clara said softly, her gaze unwavering. You have to confront your truth. Only then can you find peace. Only the truth can set you free, Tom added, his voice steady and resolute. A rush of emotions surged through me, fear mingling with a flicker of hope. The truth, I whispered, the words hanging in the air. Face it, Clara urged. You can do this. As I steadied my breath, I realized that the shadows were not just my tormentors. They were reflections of my pain, my guilt, my fear. I had to confront them head-on. I caused the accident, I admitted, my voice trembling. I was the one driving. I didn't see the car. The darkness pulsed around me, but I pressed on. I didn't protect her. I failed her. As the truth spilled from my lips, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows writhed, their hold on me weakening as I faced the reality of that day. I'm sorry, I whispered. The air around us felt charged with an energy that was both terrifying and exhilarating. I stood there, trembling, alongside Clara and Tom, as the shadows in the room writhed and danced with a life of their own. The remnants of the seance hung heavy in the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, scrutinized by unseen eyes lurking just beyond the veil of our reality. Ethan, Clara whispered, her voice barely above a tremor. What do we do now? I could feel her fear radiating off her, a palpable force that matched my own. The darkness pressed in around us, and every heartbeat seemed to echo in the silence. I don't know, I stammered, my eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of the malevolent entity that had interrupted us. But we need to face this. We can't let it win. Tom, standing a few feet away, clenched his fists. We can't give in to fear. This thing feeds on it. We have to stand together. His voice was steady, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his body coiled like a spring ready to snap. I nodded, trying to find strength in their presence. You're right. We can't let it consume us. We need to confront whatever this is. But as I spoke, I felt the weight of my own guilt creeping back in, threatening to suffocate me once more. The shadows around us thickened, swirling with a life of their own, and I could feel the oppressive atmosphere closing in. Remember what we learned from the diary, Clara said suddenly, her eyes bright with determination. It said, only the truth can set you free. We need to confront our truths. I swallowed hard. The memories of my past clawed at my mind, the pain of loss and regret threatening to unravel me. But what if the truth is too much? I whispered, feeling vulnerable. Then we face it together, Tom interjected, stepping closer, his gaze unwavering. We're not alone in this. We have to share our burdens. Yeah, we can't let it haunt us any longer, Clara added, her voice stronger now. We can do this. I believe in us. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. All right, I'll go first. The words tasted bitter on my tongue, but I knew I had to share my pain to free myself from its grasp. As I began to speak, the shadows around us seemed to pulse with anticipation. It was an accident, I said, my voice cracking. My wife. She died because of me. I was careless, distracted. I should have been paying attention. I felt tears welling in my eyes, the weight of my sorrow crashing over me like a tidal wave. I've carried this guilt for so long, convinced that I could have saved her if I had just been more careful. It's like I'm trapped in that moment forever. Clara stepped forward, her eyes brimming with empathy. Ethan, you weren't to blame. Accidents happen, and you can't punish yourself for something you couldn't control. But it feels like I can't let go, I replied, my heart racing as the shadows thickened, reacting to my turmoil. Every day, I see her face in my dreams, hear her voice calling me back. It's like I'm stuck in a nightmare. Then it's time to wake up, Tom said firmly, his voice cutting through my despair. Let her go, Ethan. She wouldn't want you to suffer like this. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I need to tell her that I love her. I need to forgive myself. The words felt foreign, heavy, but I knew they were necessary. I need to let her go. Do it, Clara encouraged, her gaze unwavering. We're here with you. As I closed my eyes, I envisioned my wife's face, the warmth of her smile, the way her laughter used to fill our home. I love you, I whispered into the darkness, feeling a flicker of hope amidst the suffocating sorrow. I'm so sorry for what happened. I wish I could have saved you, but I can't keep living in this shadow. I need to let you go. In that moment, a shudder ran through the room, and the shadows seemed to pause, as if they were listening. I felt a warmth spreading through me, a light pushing back against the darkness, and I realized that I was finally beginning to release some of the pain I had held onto for so long. Suddenly, Clara's voice broke through my reverie. I think it's my turn now. She stood tall, her determination unwavering. I've been haunted by my own fears and insecurities. I've always felt like I was never good enough, that I was destined to fail, that fear has held me captive, making me feel unworthy of love and happiness. Clara, I said softly, my heart aching for her, you're more than enough. You're brave and strong. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I've let my doubts define me for so long, but I realize now that I can't allow them to control me any longer. I need to accept myself, flaws and all. Then do it, Tom said, stepping closer to her. You have to embrace who you are. I accept that I'm not perfect, Clara declared, her voice gaining strength. I accept my mistakes, my shortcomings. I'm worthy of love, and I will not let fear dictate my life any longer. As she spoke, the shadows flickered around us, momentarily dimming. I could feel a shift in the energy, a collective release of tension. The atmosphere felt lighter, and I sensed that the entity lurking in the corners of the room was wavering. Your truth is powerful, Clara, I said, feeling hope blossom within me. Now we just have to hold on to that strength. Tom took a deep breath, his expression resolute. I guess it's my turn. He squared his shoulders, facing us both. I've been running from my past for too long. I lost my brother to a reckless decision of mine. I thought if I could just forget it, make it disappear, I'd be free from the guilt. But it's never left me. I've been haunted by the what-ifs and the feeling that I could have saved him. Tom, you can't keep blaming yourself, Clara said softly. You didn't intend for that to happen. I know that, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. But the guilt is suffocating. I've tried to bury it, but it always resurfaces, like a nightmare I can't escape. I need to forgive myself, even if it feels impossible. Then say it, I urged, feeling the shadows shifting again, reacting to his turmoil. Let it out. I forgive myself, Tom shouted, his voice echoing through the room. I forgive myself for my brother's death. I was young and foolish. I can't change the past, but I won't let it control my future any longer. As those words hung in the air, the shadows recoiled, as if stung by the light of our truths. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a sense of liberation that swept through us. I could feel the energy crackling, vibrant and alive, as if the darkness was beginning to lose its grip on us. Together, Clara said, her voice rising with hope, "We can face this thing. We can break the cycle of pain." "Yes," I shouted, feeling a surge of strength. "We're not alone in this. Our truths bind us together, and we're stronger than the darkness." Tom nodded, determination etched on his face. "We need to stand together. We won't let this entity take us down." In that moment, we formed a circle, our hands clasped tightly together. The shadows writhed around us, but we held our ground, our hearts pounding in unison. "We will not be consumed," I declared, my voice ringing out against the oppressive darkness. "We are more than our pain." As we chanted our truths, the shadows surged and flickered, as if trying to resist our united front. "You have no power over us," Clara shouted, her voice strong and unwavering. "We reclaim our lives. Your darkness cannot hold us," Tom added, his eyes fierce with defiance. "We refuse to be your prisoners." The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of sound that reverberated through the room, but we held firm, our grip on one another unbreakable. The darkness began to dissipate, the oppressive weight lifting as our words resonated through the air. "Together," I shouted, feeling the warmth of hope enveloping us. "We are stronger together." In that moment, I could feel the shadows retreating, their power waning against the light of our truths. We were breaking free, and I could sense a profound change in the very fabric of the room. The darkness that had once felt all-consuming was now retreating, giving way to the light within us. As our voices rang out, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. We were no longer prisoners of our pasts. We were warriors in our own stories, and together we would conquer the shadows. The air was thick with a palpable dread as I found myself once again face to face with the shadow, a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to pulse with its own sinister energy. My heart raced as I staggered backward, feeling the weight of the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on me, suffocating any remnants of courage that once resided in my chest. The room was dim, the flickering lights barely illuminating the grotesque shapes that danced at the edges of my vision. "Stay together," I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence as Clara and Tom began to fade from my sight, their forms swallowed by the encroaching darkness. I reached out for them, but it was as if an invisible force had yanked them away, leaving me isolated in this hellish labyrinth of shadows. I could hear their muffled cries, the sounds of their fear cutting through the veil of my own terror. "Ethan," Clara's voice pierced through the gloom, a beacon of desperation. "We have to fight this thing together." "I'm trying," I yelled back, but the words felt hollow, lost in the consuming darkness. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the tide of despair that threatened to pull me under. The shadow loomed closer, its form shifting and writhing, and I could see glimmers of light within it, tortured faces contorted in anguish, their silent screams echoing in my mind. "Face it, Ethan. You can't run from your past." The shadow seemed to whisper, its voice a chilling echo of my own doubts and fears. It circled around me, taunting me, drawing closer with each word. "You think you can escape? You'll always be shackled by your guilt." "No!" I shouted defiantly, shaking my head as if that could dispel the truth that twisted inside me. But deep down, I knew it was right. I felt the crushing weight of my memories, the trauma of that fateful day when everything changed. My heart ached as the images flooded my mind. The screeching tires, the shattering glass, the lifeless body of my wife. "You're nothing without your pain," It hissed, and I felt my resolve begin to crumble. Embrace it, Ethan. You know you want to. You've been holding on for so long. I took a step back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Get away from me, I shouted, but my voice trembled. You're just a part of my mind. You don't have power over me. But the shadow merely laughed, a sinister sound that reverberated through the room. Is that what you tell yourself? Look around you, Ethan. You're trapped in your own memories, in a prison of your own making. And I am the keeper of that prison. I felt my knees weaken as despair threatened to overtake me. No, I whispered, shaking my head. I won't let you win. I can't let you take me. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, I began to run, darting through the labyrinthine shadows. Each twist and turn revealed fragments of my past, moments I had buried deep within me. I saw flashes of laughter, of love, of the life we once shared. And then, like a knife to the gut, the horrific images returned. The accident replaying over and over, each time more vivid and painful than the last. Remember her? The shadow taunted, its voice echoing in the void. Remember how you let her down? Stop it! I screamed, clutching my head as I tried to block out the memories. You're not real. But the shadows pressed in closer, each whisper a reminder of my guilt. I stumbled, falling to my knees as the weight of my sorrow bore down on me. I was supposed to protect her. I cried out, tears streaming down my face. I failed her. Exactly, the shadow hissed, its form shifting and swirling around me. You failed her, and that will always be your burden to bear. Embrace it, Ethan. It's all you have left. No, I shouted, my voice breaking. I won't let you define me. In that moment of clarity, I remembered Clara's words from earlier. Only the truth can set you free. I had been running from my truth for so long, trying to bury the pain and guilt instead of confronting it. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in that thought. Okay, I whispered to myself, gathering my strength. I need to do this. I stood up, wiping the tears from my face. I need to face my truth. The shadow recoiled, sensing the shift in my energy. You think you can defeat me with mere words? It sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in its voice. I'm not here to defeat you, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to accept you. The shadow hesitated, its form flickering. What do you mean? I acknowledged my pain. I continued, my heart pounding in my chest. I acknowledged that I was driving that car, that I made a mistake. I was terrified, and I couldn't save her. But I won't let that define who I am. I won't let it consume me any longer. The shadows writhed around me, and I felt a strange sensation, a warmth blossoming within the cold void. You think acceptance will save you? The shadow hissed, but the confidence in its voice was waning. I know it will, I replied, my voice rising with conviction. I understand now that my guilt doesn't have to be a weight I carry. It can be a part of my story, a lesson learned. I loved her, and she wouldn't want me to suffer like this. As I spoke those words, the darkness around me began to shift. I could feel it, the oppressive weight of the shadow starting to dissipate. I took a step forward, pushing through the darkness. I forgive myself for what happened, I declared, my voice ringing with newfound strength. And I forgive you for being a manifestation of my pain. You don't control me anymore. The shadow shrieked, its form twisting violently as waves of energy rippled through the air. No, you can't do this. You're nothing without your suffering. I am so much more than my suffering. I shouted back, feeling the light within me growing stronger. I am the love I shared with her, the joy we created together. And I will not let you take that away from me. With a final surge of determination, I reached out toward the shadow, my hand trembling as I embraced the darkness, accepting it as part of my journey. I accept my pain, I whispered, and I will move forward. In that moment, the shadow let out a deafening roar, a sound of pure rage and despair. But as it did, I felt a warmth envelop me, a bright light breaking through the darkness. The shadow began to dissolve, its form fracturing into countless tiny pieces, each one a fragment of the pain I had carried for so long. And then, in the midst of that radiant light, I saw her, my wife, standing in the distance, her expression serene and loving. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm, "you've finally found your way back." As the shadow continued to fade, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. My guilt and pain began to lift, replaced by the warmth of acceptance and love. I took a step toward her, my heart swelling with emotion. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I've been so lost without you. You've carried your burden for too long." "My love," she said, her voice gentle, "it's time to let it go." As the last remnants of the shadow dissolved into the light, I felt a sense of liberation. The weight that had shackled me for so long was finally lifted, and I was free to embrace my past, my memories, and the love that would never fade. As I stood there, my heart pounding fiercely in my chest, the oppressive darkness of the room began to shift. The shadows that had haunted me, twisted and malevolent, seemed to waver as I drew a deep breath. I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me, but for the first time, I sensed a glimmer of something else. Acceptance. "Let her go," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. "Let me see her." In that moment, the shadows surged, swirling around me in a tempest of memories and regrets. They pulled me back to the scene of the accident, the day my world had shattered. But instead of feeling trapped, I stood my ground, the truth bubbling up from the depths of my soul. I felt Clara and Tom's presence nearby, their energy a comforting reminder that I was not alone in this battle. Then, amidst the swirling darkness, I saw her. A figure emerged, soft and radiant, like a beacon of light piercing through the suffocating gloom. It was my wife, her smile warm and familiar, yet touched with sadness. "Ethan," she said, her voice echoing gently like a distant melody. "You've been lost for too long." With tears streaming down my face, I stepped closer, my heart aching with a mix of longing and guilt. "I've missed you every single day. I've blamed myself for what happened. I thought I could save you. You were never meant to carry this alone," she replied, her eyes shimmering like stars in the night sky. "You need to forgive yourself, to let go of the guilt that binds you." "I'm not angry. I want you to live." Her words struck deep, reverberating within me like a sacred truth that had been buried under layers of pain. I had let my grief envelop me, transforming into a shadow that consumed every aspect of my life. But now, her presence was a balm to my wounded spirit, urging me to confront the darkness I had been running from. "I don't know how," I admitted, my voice quivering. "I've tried, but it feels impossible." "You've already started," she said softly, "by facing the shadows, by being here in this moment. Remember our love. It was never meant to be a chain that holds you back. It's a light that guides you forward." I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. I thought of all the laughter we shared, the dreams we built together, and the future that had been cruelly snatched away. And in that moment of reflection, I realized that I had allowed my memories to become a prison instead of a sanctuary. "I love you," I whispered, the weight of the confession lifting my spirit. "I need to let you go." As I opened my eyes again, the shadows began to retreat, their grip on my heart loosening. The dark entity that had tormented me for so long seemed to writhe in response, sensing its power waning. Clara and Tom stood nearby, their expressions a mixture of awe and determination. "Do it, Ethan," Clara urged, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You have to believe in yourself." "We're with you." Together, Tom added, clenching his fists as if preparing for battle. "We break the cycle of pain." Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself, feeling the warmth of their support enveloping me. I turned back to the figure of my wife, her face radiant with love and encouragement. "I will free us all." With newfound strength, I focused on the shadows, gathering my thoughts into a powerful declaration. I accept my past. I accept the pain, the guilt, and the love I shared with my wife. The accident was not my fault. I will not let this darkness consume me any longer. As I spoke, the oppressive air around us seemed to shift. The shadows shrieked, their cries echoing in a cacophony of despair. The dark figure that had tormented me transformed, losing its shape, becoming more amorphous and chaotic, as if it could not withstand the truth I was proclaiming. "You cannot hold me," I screamed, my voice rising above the turmoil. "You are not my burden. You are a part of my journey, but you will not define my future." The shadows writhed violently, and in a blinding flash of light, my wife's form began to dissolve, transforming into a radiant energy that swept through the room. I felt a wave of warmth enveloping me, filling the void where sorrow had lingered for too long. "Ethan," her voice echoed softly, "live for both of us. Let my love be your guide." With that, she vanished, and the darkness recoiled, shrieking in anguish. The room erupted in a blinding light that illuminated every corner, casting away the shadows that had once held dominion over me. Suddenly, Clara and Tom were at my side, their faces illuminated with determination. "We did it!" Clara exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with tears of relief. But before we could celebrate, a final surge of darkness erupted from the remnants of the entity, swirling around us like a tempest. Panic surged through me as I realized we weren't out of danger yet. "Stay together," Tom shouted, grabbing our hands. "We face this as one." As the shadows swirled, we formed a tight circle, our hearts pounding in unison. "We have to declare our truths," Clara urged. "Together. I am not defined by my past," Tom shouted, his voice fierce and unwavering. "I am more than my mistakes. I will not let fear control me," Clara added, her voice steady despite the chaos. I felt the power of their words resonate within me, fueling my resolve. "We are not victims. We are survivors." With one final push, we all screamed our truths in unison, a powerful wave of energy emanating from our bodies and crashing against the dark entity. "We are free!" The shadows writhed in agony, their form distorting and collapsing under the weight of our collective strength. Light flooded the room, illuminating the walls of the cursed space, revealing the truth behind the darkness that had haunted us. And just like that, the dark entity shattered, scattering into a million shards of shadow that sparkled like stars. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of peace that washed over us like a gentle tide. Breathless and trembling, I looked around at Clara and Tom, who were equally stunned but filled with relief and triumph. "We did it," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "We broke free." As the last remnants of darkness faded, I felt a profound sense of liberation settle within me. I had faced my fears, embraced my pain, and emerged stronger on the other side. But then, the ground trembled beneath us, and the entire room began to shake as the hotel itself started to collapse. "We need to get out," Clara shouted, her eyes wide with urgency. We raced toward the door, but as we reached it, I turned back one last time. The space that had once felt like a prison now radiated with light, a testament to the battles we had fought and the truths we had uncovered. In that moment, I understood. The hotel, the cursed room, had never been a physical space. It was a manifestation of our internal struggles, our fears, and our grief. It was a reflection of the shadows we carried within us. And now, those shadows were free. With a final glance at the transforming room, I stepped through the doorway, Clara and Tom right behind me. We burst into the cool night air, breathing in the freedom that surrounded us, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. As we stumbled away from the crumbling hotel, I looked back one last time. The building was collapsing in on itself, the walls crumbling into dust. But instead of fear, I felt gratitude. "Goodbye, Room 13, I murmured, a bittersweet smile gracing my lips. "Thank you for the lessons." As we walked into the night, I felt the warmth of my wife's love envelop me, guiding me forward into a future unburdened by shadows. I was free. We were free. And for the first time in a long time, I could finally see the light ahead.